Kelsey, quite remarkably, he has had 21 catches over the past 2 playoff games. That's unheard of. 21 catches in 2 postseason games. He must be on for some record. I mean, imagine if he played in the wildcard round. If the Chiefs hadn't had the 1 seed, Darius Slay and James Bradbury are miles better than what you can get for Eli Apple and Cam Taylor-Britt. Taylor Britt's impressed me, but Eli Apple, the less said about Eli Apple, the better at this point. They've been in 5 straight AFC Championship games, and they very, very well could have been in 5 Super Bowls in a row. Here we are, another episode of the SJMoores podcast, and this one, it's a Super Bowl. It's Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Got Rihanna on the halftime show. There's no Monday lecture for me either, so I can go absolutely ham on Sunday night if I want to, which I probably will. And I can't wait for it. And it's a Super Bowl, and without further ado, no beating around the bush here. Let's get into previewing it. We will get to the latest NFL news quickly, just to go over what has happened in the league, because a lot has happened since the last podcast. We'll get into that now. But after that, let's get straight into the Super Bowl preview podcast with a few special guests coming down the line as well. Okay, we'll start with the big news of the past week. It is the retirement of the greatest American football player of all time, the 7-time Super Bowl champion, I think it's 7, so it's 7 or 6, Tom Brady, the quarterback of the New England Patriots and the layering line and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom, he initially retired 12 months ago before a change of heart. I think mainly because of the Adam Schefter tweet saying that he would retire before he did actually announce the retirement. And also there's everything going on with his wife Gisele Bündchen and everything like that. And it's been a mad 18 months or so for Brady. Retired 12 months ago, then decided to come back. And he's since gone through a divorce with Gisele. But for me personally, until a couple of weeks ago, it looked like he was probably going to play another couple of years. It looked like he was destined for somewhere like Vegas or San Francisco, maybe even back to New England again to play a couple of years to end his career. He showed no signs of slowing down. His arms weakened a little bit, but he still looks better than Dak Prescott in my opinion. He's still playing to a very high level. Tom Brady was, but it all changed for me about 2 weeks ago and everyone as well, because everyone was wondering, is he really done after the wildcard round loss to Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys? He hinted at his retirement then, some people saw into it. A lot of people said, "Oh, I can't be anything." Me included. I did an article on Full 10 Yards saying that I still think he's going to play somewhere like Vegas with Josh McDaniels next year. But no, he called it quits. It'll be interesting to see what Fox do with Brady and Olsen in the near future. We've also got NFL Honours coming out this Thursday, and by the time you are watching this or listening to it, it's probably happened. I'm not sure where I'm going to put this out, but right now it's Monday. It's Monday morning, and the Super Bowl's on Sunday, so a lot could happen, and anything that will change in the week, I will put in this podcast as well, my reaction to it. It's just I'm going away for the week, so it's easy to do it now and interrupt my week off. But anyway, so mentioning NFL Honours, I'm going to go now and predict all of the award winners before getting into the preview in the Super Bowl. So, in my opinion, right, the main award, the MVP, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes, isn't it? He's had an outstanding year. He's been consistent throughout it, which some quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow haven't. And for me, he is the best quarterback in the league by a bit of a margin. After that, you've got Burrow behind him, you've got Allen, you've got a little drop off behind Burrow. But in my opinion, Patrick Mahomes is by far the best quarterback in this league. He's tied for first with the PFF's highest passing grade with Joe Burrow, but he's got 2 more big-time throws than Burrow. He also has 2 more ton of wealthy plays, but in my opinion, the 0.2 better average depth of target of 7.7 yards, the much better pocket presence of a 10.8 pressure to sack ratio, which is the best in the league for anyone, compared to Burrow, which is quite high because behind that offensive line. But the way Mahomes can elude a sack is better than anyone in the league, and that as well, as his arm are his 2 main strengths. He can read. He's probably accurate as well, but in my opinion, his pocket presence is second to none in this league, and it's what makes Patrick Mahomes special. And I mean, he's also got 41 touchdowns, the most in the league, 5,251 passing yards on the season as well, another league best. In my opinion, I can't look past anyone else but Patrick Mahomes for MVP. As for Offensive Player of the Year, look no further than Justin Jefferson. And it feels like he might win a few of these in his career. Obviously, his young career, but he's been right up there every year. Feels like he's PFF's actually he's only the third highest graded receiver, which I thought was interesting with the league has had. But he did lead the league in receiving yards of over 1,800 yards and 7 TDs. He also had 128 receptions, which is another league high. He had the most yards after catch too for 632, and the second highest yards per route run, which is a really interesting stat. He's right up there with Tyreek Hill, who's number 1, and Jalen Waddle, who's number 3. So he's getting all these catches are down the field. Other that, or like I said, he's extending the play with his 632 yards after catch. The stat that I really like though, he has 80 catches for first downs, the league highest. So whenever Kirk Cousins needs him to move the chains, Justin Jefferson is there to catch for a first down. On the defensive side of the ball, this one is probably the toughest one to pick between Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons, in my opinion. And I mean, according to PFF, because their sack model is a bit different than other sack models, but it's the one I trust the most. Nick Bosa has 19 sacks, 5 more than Micah Parsons. He has 30 QB hits, 8 more than anybody else. He's tied for 90 total pressures, the league highest, with Micah Parsons. And, I mean, it's the closest award. I mean, Bosa's working the run game as well, probably wins it for him. He's got 2 more run stops and 7 less missed tackles than Micah Parsons as well. But, like, they're that close in numbers. And in my opinion, Nick Bosa is the best defensive player in football. And he deserves this award, and I think he probably will win it. If I wouldn't be surprised to see Micah Parsons win it, but in my opinion, it should be Nick Bosa. Okay, on to the rookie awards now. Offensive Rookie of the Year. We'll start with. I'm going to go for Garrett Wilson. And before I was thinking I'm probably going to go to Kenneth Walker. And it is a tough one. But then I looked through the numbers and I saw that Tyler Algier, the rookie running back for the Falcons, had basically almost identical numbers, if not better, to Kenneth Walker. Obviously, he had a shared backfield as well at the start of the year before Cordero Patterson got injured. And, it's similar numbers, so it's not really anything special. Garrett Wilson, on the other hand, well, he has had, the likes of Chris Olave and Drake London have had, similar, just a little bit worse seasons. Wilson had an awesome year with basically no quarterback. It's been a revolving door at QB for the Jets this season. You've had obviously Flacco to start with, then Zach Wilson, who was a disaster, and then Mike White, and then Zach Wilson again, and then they've with the uncertainty at QB. I think Garrett Wilson being the PFF's 12th highest graded receiver, getting 1,003 yards and 4 TDs. With that. QB situation, I've got to give it to Garrett Wilson. Is 13.3 yards per catch, 55 catches of first downs as well, so it's quite a few, not like the Jefferson number, but the 11th most. I mean, look, I can't look I can't look further than Garrett Wilson because of what he's had to deal with over the last year. To even have top 10, top 15 receiver numbers is outstanding in my opinion. The Defensive Rookie of the Year is also a New York Jets player. Of course, it's Sauce Gardner, and this one, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? He's had an All-Pro corner season in his rookie year. He's got PFF's highest coverage grade on all cornerbacks, with 90.2 grade as a rookie. Normally they go better. I'm excited for Sauce's career. He had 14 pass breakups, the tied most of anyone in the league, and 2 interceptions. And he also allowed the best pass rating as well of only 52.5. Mental. I mean, Sauce looks like he's going to be an absolute pain to throw to in the future. And I mean, yes, he does hold a lot. We noticed that with the game week 18 against Tyreek Hill. Sauce does hold a lot. But, I mean, he's some player. And also he gets away with it as well. Not many people get away with it. But, he's already garnered the respect from the refs. And he can hold on to the player for a little bit too longer without anyone noticing. Which I mean, I hate it about the league, but it's just how it works, unfortunately. Okay, on to comeback player of the year. I got Christian McCaffrey, and I mean, this year we got to witness the best of CMC again. After two straight 16 game seasons, the 2 years before this year, he has played two. He had played 10 games into the 2 years coming into this season. 2 games in 10 games. Yeah, he had played 10 games in 2 seasons coming into this year. So obviously he's gone from 32 games in 2 years to 10 games in 2 years. Going down with season-ending injuries quite early in both of the past 2 seasons. This year, he played a full season. He had 6 games in Carolina, where he looked okay, but he didn't look back to his best. And then he was traded to San Francisco for a second-round pick. And he completed a full season, and he looked back to his best. I mean, obviously, give Kyle Shanahan a versatile weapon like that, and it's the end game for you. Like, at the end of the day, 1,100 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, 741 receiving yards, 2 and 5 TDs. So I mean, that's nearly 1,900 yards and 13 TDs. Like that's close to his career best year in Carolina, the one where he got over 2,000 scrimmage yards. Like, what a year from Christian McCaffrey, and I think he's the only person who can win comeback player of the year because he has come back from heartbreak to being an elite football player again in that Niners offense, and obviously 1 game away from the Super Bowl too. On to coach of the year. We'll go for head coach of the year first before assistant coach of the year. In my opinion, you have to give it to Brian Daboll. Anyone who takes an offense with no receiving core and improves the quarterback in that situation as well. Obviously, the offensive line's actually all right, and obviously you've got Saquon Barkley as well. But Brian Daboll made the Giants look like a functional franchise for the first time in like forever. So say what it is. He has, because I thought he'd be a good coach. But I didn't see this Giants team winning any more than 6 games, if I'm being honest. Especially, with the talent they had after a few weeks when everyone got injured. Like, this team, with its talent, arguably you could say it's worse than the Bears, roster. Like, it could be competing for the number 1 overall pick. I mean, when you're referring to people like Isaiah Hodgins, yeah, honestly, Daboll, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, they made it work, and they did very well. And I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they do, Daniel Jones. Now, will they re-sign him? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they will do, but obviously they're one of the teams that for a rebuilding team, they're actually not that great against the cap. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of moves are made, and will they bring back Saquon Barkley? He's had a very good year, but do you pay a running back? I personally don't pay a running back. You've seen with Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard was one of the best running backs in football this year, and the Cowboys are playing Zeke, a lot of money. I don't know what happens to the Giants, but they had a good season, and I'm sure Dave will figure it out. As for my assistant coach of the year, I mean, look no further than Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Now, he was very much kept under wraps during Hard Knocks. We didn't see him very much. They were on the offensive side of the ball. They were more focusing on Juice Staley, and it looked like he was very much involved in the running of the offense. But what the Detroit do have on their hands is one of the most creative play callers in football right now, Ben Johnson. And he got head coaching interviews for a reason. That's all I'm saying. And the Lions' offense was very fun. They scored 30 points. It felt like every game, really. Jared Goff had what felt like a career year as well. I know he graded very highly on a lot of statistic models. In my opinion, this Lions team were really fun to watch this year, and very productive on the offensive side of the ball. And the reason why was because of Ben Johnson. Now, just to wrap up before we do break down the Super Bowl, there have been 3 head coaching hirings going into Monday morning. Obviously, if there are more, which I expect there probably will be more, I have absolutely no idea what the Colts are going to do. Watch this space. On Monday morning, I think they're going to hire Jeff Saturday, which, I mean, it would be funny, wouldn't it? I mean, speaking about the Colts, their former head coach Frank Reich, he has been hired as the Carolina Panthers head coach, and I mean, in my opinion, he is a very safe and probably very cheap option as well for the Panthers, but it's one I like. I mean, looking at it now, he did quite well in what is actually looking like a really dysfunctional organisation in Indianapolis. More and more by the day. So I think Frank Wright looks like he actually did it right there, and he probably gets to pick a QB as well. I mean, you've got the likes of Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo. I can see Derek Carr going to Carolina as well, getting out the AFC. Put Derek Carr in the Panthers, and they're probably a playoff team. They could, he'll be the best quarterback in the division, unless, he will be. He'll be the best quarterback in the NFC South. And, I mean, I think Derek Carr is a great fit for Carolina. It'd be interesting to see what they do. But, all with the pick in the draft as well, you could pick up someone like Will Levis. The Panthers have got options, and Frank Reich is their future head coach. The next hiring was the Houston Texans, and they picked up DeMeco Ryans, who in my opinion is the most impressive young coach on the market. And he actually picked Houston over the Denver Broncos, who have a much better roster, but are not looking like a great organisation right now. Well, to be fair, neither do the Texans, but if you want to build a culture, I probably would pick the Texans too, because you get to pick a QB, you're not tied down to anyone, you're not really tied down to any player other than probably Laramie Tunsil in that team as well. But I mean, Brandon Cooks is going, so you're probably going to get some money for him, some compensation for him. At the end of the day, I think that if you want a total rebuild, if you want to instate yourself as a culture and show how good of a coach you are, I think the Houston job was actually a good choice for DeMeco Ryans. Obviously, he's got personal ties there as well. He was drafted there. He's on a 6-year contract as well, so that's quite a long contract for a coach. Obviously, we've seen that before with Matt Rule, his 8-year contract, which I think the Panthers are really starting to regret right now, because Matt Rule was probably one of the worst head coaches of all time. We saw that of how good Steve Wilkes was in the Panthers job after Rule was fired. And I mean, Ryans, he probably gets a rookie QB. I know he said in his press conferences this week that we have a guy in Davis Mills, but they don't. And he's also got a very young team to build around as well. So I'll be interested to see how good the Texans are next year. I think they're a couple of years away, obviously, in the whole fleecing of after they got fleeced in the Laramie Tunsil trade, and also obviously giving away DeAndre Hopkins for basically nothing. At the end of the day, I back the choice on DeMeco Ryans, and it's interesting that nobody wanted the Denver job, and because of that, after missing out on DeMeco Ryans, the Denver Broncos, they agreed a trade package with the New Orleans Saints to bring in, back from retirement, Sean Payton, to try and fix Russell Wilson, really. And, I mean, Denver, they've got a Super Bowl winning head coach, and, I mean, he's seen as one of the best in the game, but obviously they had to give up the compensation to get him, which is why we've seen not a great market for Sean Payton. Now, I'm interested with this one, because if I was him, I probably would have turned down this job, because, the likelihood is you've either got Dallas or the Chargers, which I'm sure are way more appetizing to him than the Broncos job next year. And he could have a year in TV with Fox. I thought Sean Payton was really good on Fox this year, just tuning in post-game, pre-game. I thought Sean Payton was quite good at Fox. And it is his weekly conversation with Colin Cowherd as well, which is really good. Obviously, he said some quite controversial things on there, like before the year, and I think after that week 1 or 2, he said Teddy Bridgewater was still better than Tua, which obviously blew up in his face afterwards. And he had to come out and apologise, but say he was wrong. But yeah, I actually think he was quite a good pundit, and if I was him, I would have stayed in TV for a year and probably took the Chargers job, because don't get me wrong, Russell Wilson is one of my favourite quarterbacks I've seen. I love him, but last year he was broken. And what probably tipped him over the edge of taking this job was how good he was after Nathaniel Hackett was fired. But, it's still a risk for Sean Payton. But at the end of the day, the Broncos are committed to him now. They've given up a trade package. And, they've lost their first-round pick for this year. And, it is what it is, really. We'll see how good they are, and I hope they're good next year. I really do hope they're good next year. But enough of the NFL news. Let's get into previewing Super Bowl. Was it 57? I believe it's Super Bowl 57. And I mean, here we are, the big game, La Serata Finale, the Super Bowl. It's Kansas City versus Philadelphia, and it's free to view. It's available for free for you viewers on ITV, and I mean to stream on ITVX as well, the new streaming platform. So if you are new to the sport, like I know some of you who do listen to this podcast are, and you want to get into it, or if you've never seen the sport before and you're just seeing this clip, this is the perfect way to start. Kansas City, they beat Cincinnati to get here. They won 23-20, and it was quite down to a Joseph Asai unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, pushing Patrick Mahomes out of bounds that moved the Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker into field goal range to seal the game in its dying embers. I mean, and if you're watching that game for the first time, you'd be surprised how good Patrick. If you're watching that game for the first time, you'd think Patrick Mahomes on an ankle sprain would be the best player on the field, and he was. I mean, he looked like his normal self, even with the high ankle sprain. He went for 326 yards, 2 TDs, and 105.4 passer rating. And one thing that I thought was very interesting in this game, actually, as well, the ball was very much in the air. Joe Burrow was the game's leading rusher in the game against the Bengals. He had 4 carries of 30 yards. And, I mean, that just shows how, one, the Chiefs can't run the ball, even with Isaiah Pacheco. They're like the Bills. I mean, the Bills just can't establish a proper run game. Now, admittedly, they're short passing. They do control the clock. It's not like the Bills where they sometimes get stuck because they're like a run game. But, yeah, they're not quite the offense they were when they had Kareem Hunt in that backfield. But there were some Chiefs the other day to look out for. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he caught 6 of 8 targets for 116 yards on a TD. And I mean, with no real superstar receiver for the Chiefs, they have a different guy who makes a big play each week. Sometimes it's Juju, sometimes it's Justin Watson. They have a lot of options, no real number one option other than Travis Kelce, obviously. But and interesting to see who steps up for the Chiefs. Chris Jones. Now, I thought this was amazing. In the game against the Bengals, he achieved his first 2 postseason sacks, and I mean he was dominant in that game. He helped Kansas City beat the Bengals. He had 10 total pressures, 2 sacks, 3 QB hits, and 3 run stops. So he was all over the Bengals' offense at the line of scrimmage. And I mean, the Chiefs looked really strong and never looked like they were really going to lose the game either. They always looked like they were going to come out on top, even when Mahomes fumbled at the end because he didn't plant his feet in to throw the ball, which was actually because of the high ankle sprain as well, he said afterwards. But in my opinion, the Chiefs looked really good in that game, and it's hard to pick against them in this game. Now, Philadelphia, they come into this one off the back of a huge 31-7 win over the San Francisco 49ers. And, I mean, that game was really killed by Brock Purdy's injury. It ruined the game. Was then able to control both sides of the ball, especially at the line of scrimmage. I mean, from then, after the Purdy elbow injury, which, I mean, he looks like he's out for a year now. So, I mean, if you're Trey Lance, you're in the back of your head, you're so happy about that because it looks like you're going to start next year. But, I mean, from then, the minimum was required for Jalen Hurts. I mean, he threw for 121 yards in a day. He was only sacked once too, and obviously a big chunk of those yards actually were the big shots of Devontae Smith going up and grabbing it over the top of Treverius Ward. No, not Treverius Ward. The Ward on the Niners, Jimmy Ward. But it might be Treverius Ward. Either way, the Niners DB, and at the end of the day, the 44 rushing attempts won the game for the Eagles because they can just, their run game is so good. We saw in the 2 playoff games, the Giants won. They absolutely bulldozed the Giants with the run game, and they had 44 rushing attempts, 3 players with more than 11 each each of, over 3 yards per carry. Kenneth Gainwell, by the way, 2 straight games in a row. He is really continuing to impress me in this pro season. Yeah, he had a monster day, as did Hassan Reddick on the defensive side of the ball. He had 2 sacks, 3 tackles, and the key thing as well, a forced fumble, which obviously the Purdy play. Javon Hargrave up the middle as well on the D-line with Hassan Reddick had a massive game as well. He had a sack, a pass batted down, 2 run stops, and 4 QB hurries. Who wins on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage will win this football game. You've got Jason Kelce against Chris Jones in the middle on the Chiefs defense. You've got Frank Clark and Karlaftis versus Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, the probably best offensive tackle duo in the league. And the same goes on the other side. Will Hassan Reddick be able to have another big day? It's a tough Chiefs O-line. And don't get me wrong, the Niners O-line before last week was one of the best in football, but they did have a bad day. And admittedly as well, when you got Josh Johnson behind you, it probably is difficult just to function as an offense. But yeah, Hassan Reddick destroyed what looked like an elite offensive line last week, or 2 weeks ago. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens at the line of scrimmage. One thing that I am interested to see is whether Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and or CJ Gardner-Johnson, as he changed his name to, and Marcus Epps cover Travis Kelce. Kelce, quite remarkably, he has had 21 catches over the past 2 playoff games. That's unheard of. 21 catches in 2 postseason games. He must be on for some record. Imagine if he played in the wildcard round. If the Chiefs hadn't had the 1 seed, that would be fucking insane. If you mind my French. Look, when Travis Kelce is covered, which Chiefs receiver will be the one to step up? Last week it was, in the championship game, it was Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He was the one that stepped up in that game. But Philadelphia, they have a better secondary than the Bengals. Safety maybe not, because Epps and Gardner-Johnson are a worry, but Darius Slay and James Bradbury are miles better than what you can get for Eli Apple and Cam Taylor-Britt. Taylor Britt's impressed me, but Eli Apple, the less said about Eli Apple, the better at this point. And can the Chiefs stop the run? I was mentioning it before. The Eagles have been dominant running the football in this postseason. They're going to try and absolutely run it down the Kansas City throat, like they did in the past 2 games against the Giants and the Niners. One thing to notice is I think the Chiefs might be able to cope with this. They are 8th against the run. We've seen at only 18th against the pass. And this game may come down to Jalen Hurts needing to make a play, thread the needle. Can he do it? This is a big spot for Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Mahomes has been here twice before. Jalen Hurts has not been here before. Admittedly, he's been in a national championship game in college, but 2 were to come in the 2018 one. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from Jalen Hurts this year. We've seen so much improvement from the ex-Alabama quarterback. He was in the MVP conversation before getting hurt, and it's mainly down to just his work as a pocket passer. He worked with Tom Brady's coach Tom Howell this year, and he's gone from an average QB to one of the league's best this year. And also the accuracy was a worry for me. Last year he had multiple games with 50%, and the year before as well, 50% completion, which is just not sustainable. Admittedly he had his legs, but I was really worried as to whether he could actually put a team on his back and win with his arm. And at the end of this year now, I feel like he could probably do that better than Lamar Jackson, if I'm being honest. And this game is so hard to pick. I'm struggling to pick it because, like I was saying earlier, the run game with the likes of Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Hurts himself, Boston Scott, you got four players who are quite capable of breaking one and going for 20, 30 yards there. And they mix and match them all. Obviously, you've got the design stuff, Jalen Hurts, which you see less of than you do with Lamar Jackson per se, but you still see it. And like, if I'm the Eagles, so I went on a bit of a Jalen Hurts tangent there. If I'm the Eagles, I'd still try and establish the run game, but if it's not going, then I try with screen passes. You've got somebody who's very good at screen passes in Devontae Smith there, and you got AJ Brown, who's a great blocker. You if you can't establish anything downfield and you can't do a run game, just see what you can do. Just if I'm Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen, I think that's his name, the Eagles offensive coordinator, just try and outplay Steve Spagnuolo, which a lot of play callers really, really struggle with. And we've seen, this Eagles offense has been some of the most creative, inventive stuff we've seen for a while on the offensive side of the football. And I back them. If they, I really do feel like they can double something up if the run game is not there for the Eagles. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes down. And I mean, just to finish as well, I mean, for the Chiefs, right? They've been to 2 Super Bowls, 3 AFC titles, and Patrick Mahomes is likely to get, if not he has got already, depending on when this podcast comes out, a second MVP. Yeah, so 2 Super Bowls, 3 AFC titles, and 2 MVPs would be an excellent start to Patrick Mahomes' career. That's what I'm trying to say. In his 5 years as a starter, imagine that resume. I mean, he's already a Hall of Famer, but he's getting on to being up there with Tom Brady. I genuinely feel like this Chiefs dynasty could go on for a while now. This was meant to be their down year. This was meant to be the year where they didn't have anyone, and they're one game away from winning the Super Bowl again. They've been in 5 straight AFC Championship games, and they very, very well could have been in 5 Super Bowls in a row. They're a D4 neutral zone infraction, and an 11-point lead blown against Cincinnati last year, away from being in 5 Super Bowls in a row. And the Chiefs, they've been here before. They've done, like I said, they've won a Super Bowl before. They've been in 2. This is their 3rd, and I personally am struggling to pick against them. But before we get into my predictions, let's hear from everyone, every contestant in my Super Bowl Challenge competition. And the winner of this, as I mentioned before, will receive an NFL-themed prize. And what if I win? I will donate the money spent to Cancer Research UK. It's a cause that's quite close to my heart, having sadly lost my auntie to cancer 4 years ago. Last week it was actually the night of Super Bowl 53. And so it's of course it's quite close to my heart, and any money I can give to that charity, I would very happily do so. So I'm hoping I do win. Moving on. It's currently a tie for the lead between myself and Ollie Darcy, whilst Andy Davis is 2 points behind. It's all still to play for though. Charlie Grace, Kalisuk, obviously they could win too, and whoever wins will. I mean, it's a great prize. A little competition between all these sort of NFL journalists and pundits and stuff, or trainee journalists as we are. Just a nice competition between my mates already, and I'm happy to broadcast it to you. So, anyway, here are everyone's predictions.
So here we go. Super Bowl preview. It's only a week away now. 6 days away. Chiefs and the Eagles will face off in Glendale, Arizona, at State Farm Stadium in Super Bowl 57. It'll be the Chiefs' 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years, and the Eagles' 2nd in 6 years. Harry Roseman's done a great job as GM in Philadelphia, rebuilding that roster in 5 years, going from winning it with the Philly special, Doug Peterson, Nick Foles, obviously Carson Wentz back then as well, and they've kind of built from the ground up. execute some great trades, did really well in free agency last off-season, and now they're only one game away from the Vince Lombardi Trophy. On the other side, it's Andy Reid's fourth Super Bowl of his career as a head coach. His first came for Philadelphia when they lost to the New England Patriots. And the Kelsey brothers are also going to be the first brothers to face off in the Super Bowl, which is a fun little side story, I suppose. And another side story is Jalen Hurts. A bit of a redemption story for him after being benched in the national championship game back in 2018 for Alabama against Georgia, being replaced by Tua and then coming back. So there's little talking points everywhere, and it's two great offenses. Chiefs scored the most points per game in the league, and the Eagles scored the third highest. On the other side of the ball, though, I think that's where your differences arise. The Eagles have a top 10 scoring defense in the league, while Kansas City is ranked 16th. So there's an element of, can the Chiefs defense hold up to allow Kansas to keep up with Philadelphia's high scoring offense? And it's a dual threat offense as well, isn't it? Because you got good passing offense with good weapons, got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, paired with Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders' legs in the backfield, and Hurts can extend plays, pair that with his great arm, and then you've got players like Kenneth Gainwell out of the backfield as well. And the Chiefs' defense is really mixed. They have allowed the most passing touchdowns in the league, but also get the most pressures in the league and the second most sacks in the league this season. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, George Karlaftis are all great pass rushers. Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, great linebackers in there as well. But their secondary is weak, and their best corner, Jarius Sneed, is questionable for this game, and I don't know if he's going to be fit, and if he's not fit, then it's going to be a long day for that Chiefs secondary against those weapons that we talked about, and Jalen Hurts' arm. That's where the game could run away from them. Their run defense is really good, so the Eagles might have to lean on Jalen Hurts' arm. They only allowed 10 rushing touchdowns this year and 4.4 rushing yards allowed per attempt. So the front is good for the Chiefs. It's just where the secondary can hold up. And I think that could be a key battle in the trenches on both sides, really, because the Eagles have got a great defensive front, and Ndamukong Suh, Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave, all great players. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, against a great O-line for the Chiefs. Joe Tooney, Orlando Brown Jr., Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Andrew Wiley. So there's great matchups across the trenches there. And how will Mahomes' leg impact his play? He looked really good against the Bengals, apart from that one play where he was wincing, where he rolled up left. But the Philly pass rush is exceptional. We saw that against San Francisco, so that could push him off his stride. And then the other talking point is on the other side, the Chiefs front against probably the best O-line in football with Philadelphia. So can that pass rush really amount to anything? What will Steve Spagnuolo draw up to try and get to Jalen Hurts, try and disrupt his play? Because there'll be nerves for him because he's a young guy in a massive game. So there's talking points all over the field, and I think it's going to be a really fascinating close game. And I think man-to-man Philadelphia is a slightly better side, especially on defense. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. They've just got more playmakers, the Eagles, and I think because of that, I'm going to go with an Eagles win. That's my prediction. But I'm predicting a really fascinating, really exciting game with great matchups all across the field, and I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah.
Right. Hello, Sam, Andy, SJMoores podcast. I'm Ollie, one of Sam's course mates, and obviously NFL fan. Have been for a few years now, unfortunately, a Green Bay fan. So last few seasons have been good. This season, not so good. Going to be a tumultuous off-season for me personally as a Packers fan, and as a whole for the NFL. Could be interesting to see the QB market, as well as a very interesting draft with the number one pick still up in the air. But I mean, that's all for another day. I'm here for Super Bowl predictions already at that time, where the Super Bowl is being contested after a very interesting season. Not many people saw some of the games we would have seen. Not many people would have seen some teams making the playoffs, but we've rattled through from September, from week one, and now we are in the Super Bowl week. So yeah, it's been an interesting road for Philly getting to where they are after a pretty mid-season last season, to then explode onto the scene like they've done this season. I didn't see it. I knew they'd be good, but I didn't think they'd be this good. I personally think Jalen Hurts should be the MVP. I think he has been the best player at the quarterback position when in game. Some of his throws this season, you just did not think he was able to make. He's electric inside, outside the pocket, can move. So he is my MVP. I think the Eagles also have one of the most, if not the best roster in the league. Their O-line, their receiving core, their defense D-line has just been unbelievable. So, as I say, they exploded onto the scene this year. Number one seed. The road went through Philly, and they did not disappoint, and they are, after dismantling the 49ers, coming up against the Chiefs, who you know they're going to be in and around every year with Mahomes at quarterback, with the offense they have with Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. But I personally didn't see them winning, and I said the Bengals would win the championship game, and it was close. But the Chiefs do what the Chiefs do, and they just win those games. Winning is a habit, and they know how to win. So, I mean, their defense showed up. Steve Spagnuolo knows what he's doing, and their offense is just dynamite whenever it can be with Mahomes. Travis Kelce is one of the best weapons in the NFL. He just can make anything happen. So it will be interesting to see these two offenses battle it out. It could be a repeat of when the Eagles were last in the Super Bowl and last won the Super Bowl, the highest scoring Super Bowl when they played the Patriots. I think something like that could happen again. Maybe not as high scoring, but because of Philly's defense and the way the Chiefs' defense can play as well. But I think Philly's offense and Chiefs' offense is very similar, but the Eagles' defense will just edge out, maybe even a little bit more, edge out the Chiefs' defense. And as the saying goes, defense will win you championships. I think Hassan Reddick in the championship game will do exactly what he did. Will do exactly what he does. He will do it in the Super Bowl. He will cause havoc, and I believe it will be Philly taking their second Super Bowl. The score prediction, it's going to be an interesting one. I think Philly could. I think it will be 31-28, the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, Philly, they are my Super Bowl team. Jalen Hurts is my MVP pick. I think he could easily win Super Bowl MVP. So yeah, Chiefs will just miss out. It will be Philadelphia's time again, and they will win the Super Bowl 31-28. That is my prediction. Book it. Get your draft. Get your bets in. I hope you heard it here first. It will happen. But thank you, Sam, for letting me do this. And go Pack Go.
Hi everyone. I would like to first thank Sam that I can be involved in this special Super Bowl preview podcast where the Philadelphia Eagles will face the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm very excited for this Super Bowl, and I think it's really hard to predict based on the two teams and based on many factors which manipulated this year. And I think this season has been rather different. There were many surprises and there were many constants. Because let's start with the Eagles. And first, they had they had the easier schedule in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, they earned it, but they haven't met a quarterback like Mahomes. They faced an improved Daniel Jones, but I don't think Daniel Jones is a really good quarterback. Nor it was Brock Purdy, and also Purdy got injured, and then they had to play against the fourth string quarterback. And also that can make the Philadelphia defense seem better because they knew that the Niners had to run the ball most of the time if they wanted to be effective in the conference championship. Another factor is Mahomes' magic because he knows how to play in a Super Bowl. He knows how to deal with this pressure. Unlike Hurts, he knows the essence of being in the Super Bowl, and we've seen even against the Buccaneers when they lost that final to the against the Bucks. Mahomes did had wonderful games, wonderful plays, and I think that what he can do, how he can improvise, can make the difference in a game like this. Because no matter if you like or hate Mahomes, it's really exciting to see him play. And as he knows how to win a Super Bowl, he knows how to challenge, how to rise to this occasion. That's a massive factor that can make the Chiefs win. And also, on the other hand, we know that he had this injury problem in his leg. And I don't think it affected his game as much against the Bengals. I think he had a good performance. He could make these throws. Of course, it hurt him. He probably got injected, but if that magic comes around, it will be really hard to stop him and that offense. And also Andy Reid, I think he had so many experiences that he knows how to deal with the emotional side of the game because for him it will be a special Super Bowl as he's facing his former team before the Chiefs. What favors the Chiefs, in general, they have a better defense, and if we look at something, I think for the Chiefs, that's one of their downsides that they don't have one of those legendary defenses like the 2015 Broncos or like Ray Lewis's Ravens or the Legion of Boom. So on one side, it's really Mahomes. Everything is on Mahomes' shoulders and Kelsey's shoulders. While on the other hand, the Eagles can trust their defense more. They can they have a really good offensive line. They can create a good running game with those schemes, with those offensive line. So I'm not afraid that Hurts wouldn't rise to this occasion. Of course, we don't know his ceiling yet. His appearance came as a surprise, but if he trusts the O line, the defense can do their bits. The Eagles will be in this game. So that's why it's really hard to decide who has that edge. Mahomes is better than Hurts, of course, but the defense, the offensive line, the game plan. It can be different. But I hope that this will be a really good game. I hope the Eagles can rise to this occasion. They have this underdog mentality, which fits them right. Of course, they didn't have it in the NFC playoff, but here in the Super Bowl, they have that underdog mentality. But in all, my score prediction is 31. The Chiefs will win 31-28. Thanks.
Hi guys, Andy Davis here, otherwise known as Andy Davis Sport on Twitter. Now, Sam has asked me to give you guys my prediction for Super Bowl 57 this Sunday between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Now, every year I've tended to have gone for a close game, but I think this year, as it has been every other year in recent years, this one's going to be a one-sided affair. And I do think the Eagles are going to win this by, I'm going to say 20 points. That's my probably shot prediction of this whole video, is that it's going to be a one-sided affair for the Eagles. I think Mahomes did really well to get back from his injury against the Bengals, but we saw this 2 years ago when he came back after injury against the Browns and did it against the Bills before against the Buccaneers. He ultimately struggled, and I do think this could happen again. The injury, it was great that he came back and he still had a good game, but I just think that with that Eagles D-line, the D-line that's had 4 players this year with double-digit sacks, I think Hassan Reddick is my surprise pick for Super Bowl MVP. I think Miles Sanders on the offense will be the offensive MVP in this game. I think he probably will win it, knowing how that award goes down. So I do think it's going to be a great day for Sanders. I don't think either Hurts or Mahomes are going to have a vintage day for either of them. I do think it'll be a defense and run game led win for the Eagles. So yeah, I'm going to say the Eagles to win by 40 points to 20.
That's my own one. Now, I'm really struggling to pick this, but I've said it throughout, and I think I'm going to stick with the Chiefs. I can't look past Andy Reid winning this game. This is a revenge game against the Eagles. After leaving all those years ago, you get fired. And, they've been here before. And just having won one and lost one, we saw in a press conference recently, Patrick Mahomes said that after losing a Super Bowl and losing the AFC Championship game the way they did last year, he's felt like he knows what to do. He's like, he feels like he thought the league was a little bit of a doddle going into last year and the year before that but he lost the Super Bowl because of the offensive line. But going into those before the Tampa Bay game, I think he got humbled in that game, and and since then, the start of last year, Mahomes wasn't great, but since then, he has been the best quarterback in football by far. And, I think I can't look past the Chiefs here. So I'm going to go for a 31-27 victory for the Kansas City Chiefs here. And if I go for that, I believe I will win the Super Bowl challenge, and there will be money going to Cancer Research UK. I think that is my goal. Because I believe Ollie Darcy is going for the Eagles. But I've stayed with the Chiefs all along. And, the fact I'm even in, the play of winning this competition after I've not even changed my predictions. Chiefs 9 Super Bowl. Obviously, 9's got to the championship game. Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl. And, I am picking the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. Anyway, thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. And what's to come from me next? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. We might have some F1 content coming up. I know we did that last year. And, testing is in a couple of weeks. We've got all the liveries coming out now. We've had the Red Bull one, or the Haas one. The Haas one, obviously, is quite nice. And the Red Bull one has not changed. So, But there will be some F1 content coming soon. And there will be something else as well, which I hope you stay tuned for. But I just want to say thank you for getting through this little NFL playoffs mini series we've had, starting with my rant over the Miami Dolphins and the dealings with Tua Tagovailoa and Josh Boyer, and I'm very happy that Vic Fangio has now been hired as defensive coordinator, although Danny Crossman does remain on that staff, which I'm worried about. But we'll get to that another day. I think we're going to have an NFL wrap-up podcast with Andy Davis coming up soon, which we agreed to about a month ago. So just going through all of our awful predictions we had at one point in the year. I mean, I had before the year I had the Broncos going 12-5, and I had the Rams. I think we both had the Rams as the 1 seed as well, which it just says everything, really, doesn't it? It just says everything. But no, yeah, thank you for listening to the SJMoores podcast. It's been the Super Bowl preview podcast, and yeah, well, I'll see you next time.